right, good afternoon everyone. I'm Michelle Bodicher, and what this video is for my Algebra 1 class that was not here when we started talking about word problems for systems of equations. So what I'm going to do with these problems, there's 3 questions. I'm going to provide a video for you for explanation. I will also have this blank sheet in the Google Classroom. So my suggestion is please print it or write these problems on a separate sheet of paper before you start the video, and then we'll work them through together. So we are going to figure out, we've been working on systems of equations by graphing, substitution, and elimination. So what we're going to look at is put them into real life context of how we can use them in a story problem. So if you look, there's 4 ways that we are going to look at steps to problem solving. So we're going to look at those steps through the word problem. So I would read through the word problem, and then we'll read it through together. So basically it says we have 2 softball gloves and 3 bats that cost $133. The cost of 3 softball gloves and 6 bats is $231. Find the cost of a softball glove, and I actually want you to find the cost of a bat as well. So find cost of a bat. Okay, so very first thing, when you're looking at a problem, it's probably going to come at the end. What is it that you need to figure out? Well, we need to figure out the cost of the softball glove and the cost of a bat. So the very first thing I want you to do is to define your variables. So I want you to define your variables, and you don't have to use X and Y. I like letters that make sense for the problem. Like we're looking at a glove and a bat. So I would put, I'm going to put here G equals the cost of a glove. Make sure it's not the amount of, but the price of the glove. And then B will equal the cost of a bat. So very first thing is identify your problem, define your variables. What is it that you're trying to figure out? So after you define your variables, then you're going to set up a system of equation. So set up a system of equations. So number 2, set up a system of equations. So look at the information. If you look back at sentence 1, 2 softball gloves and 3 bats cost $133. We have enough information from there to create an equation. So we'd say it's 2 softball gloves. So we could say 2G plus 3 bats, so 3B equals $133. Okay, and then if you read sentence 2, it says the cost of 3 softball gloves and 6 bats is $231. So we could say 3G and 6B equals $231. So we have our system of equations, and then you think, okay, what do you do with that system? Well, we need to solve it. So solve the system. So we need to solve the system. So when we solve the system, what we're looking at is, okay, do we use elimination? Do we use substitution? Do we graph it? Well, if it's in standard form, I like elimination best. So if we're trying to do substitution, we have to get a variable by itself. They're already lined up. So elimination, remember, you just have to get rid of one of the variables. Like when I wanted to eliminate all the mice from my house, I want to get rid of them. I don't like mice in my house. So we need to solve the system, and here I'd probably do elimination. And so you think about, okay, so if you have, so to eliminate has to have this exact same variable but different signs. So if you look at the G, they 2 and 3, 6, they both go into 6. But if you look at 3 and 6, they're also go into 6. So if you look, I would probably get rid of the B's because I just have to alter the top equation here. So think about, if this is 6B, what does this need to say to get rid of it? Well, it needs to say -6. So I would need to multiply the whole top equation by -2. So whatever you do to one term, you've got to do it every single term to make the same equation. You're not changing it, you're just making a different version of the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite it over here, multiply everything by -2. So I get negative 4g minus 6b equals negative 266. And then just copy down the second equation. If 3g plus 6b equals 231. And as long as you can eliminate one of the variables, you can just draw a line underneath it, put a plus. And if you look here, if you're adding the columns, as long as they're lined up, you can cancel out the b's, add up the g's. What do we get here? We get negative g, what's really the number in front is a 1, equals to negative 35. So if you're solving for g, you divide by -1. So you would get g equal to a positive 35. So after you get g equals 35, think about, okay, what do you need to solve now? Well, you need to solve for the other variable. So I'd go back to the original, probably the smaller one. Let's go to the top one with little smaller numbers. So put 35 in for g. So we have 2 times 35 plus 3b is 133. So we get 70 here, and then we're going to need to subtract 70. And so we get 3b equals to 63. Divide by 3, and you get b is 21. You get b is 21 and g is 35. So after we solve the system, what I want you to do is to answer the question. After you solve it, I want you to answer the question. Okay, so what I mean by answer the question, okay, so if you look over the statement, it says find the cost of the glove, find the cost of the bat. So what does b equal 21 mean? What does g equal 35 mean? It means that the glove cost $35 and the bat cost $21. And then kind of circle your answer, your final answer here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I want you to read question 2 through and maybe starting to think about what your variables are. Right now, while I kind of erase the board, I push it up from my document camera and get it ready. So just I want you to think about, read it, and think about what your variables are before we start together. Thank you. Okay, so hopefully you've had time to read it. So if you've read it, you're trying to figure out, okay, what is it they're trying to find? You're looking at, you've got the Winston-Salem Science Museum sold adult tickets and adult tickets for $5 and student tickets for $2 during the first week of July. They sold a total of 202 tickets and they collected a total of $764. How many of each ticket did they sell? So what is it we're looking for? How many of each ticket? Well, what two types of people went to the Science Museum? We have adults and we have students. Again, I like variables that make sense for the problem. Let's use A. And this time it's not how many. We know, or not the cost. The last time was the cost. We know that the cost is $5 and $2. It's how many. So let's put A equals the number of adult tickets. All right, A equals the number of adult tickets, and let's let S equal the number of student tickets. Okay, the number of student tickets. So if you're looking now about putting it together, figuring out what kind of information you're given, so go back to remember our steps. First thing, we got our variables identified. Then we want to figure out the system of equations. So if you look at it, I would tell you, so the other problem we were given in pretty much the first sentence, we could write an equation. The second sentence, we wrote an equation. This, you kind of have to pull out the information and kind of figure out how to set it up. So if you look, there's really two types of information. We got money and then the number of people that went. So first thing I would do is circle all of the money information. So we have $5. I'd go to your word problem, circle it, or if you've written it out on your paper, $5 and $2 and collected 764. So all of the same type of information will go together in the same equation. So look, let's put one with money. So we have $5 for each adult. We have $5 for each adult and $2 for each student, and a total money of $764 was collected. So if you look again, you're given 202 people that went, or 202 tickets collected. Well, what types of people went? We have adults and students. So you could say adults plus students equals 202. Adults plus students equals 202. Okay, so from here, let me just erase we have our variables already identified. You have that written down. So then think about, okay, what variable do you want to eliminate? I'd probably eliminate the s here because it's 2, smaller than the 5. And how do you undo a positive 2? You need it to be a negative 2. So we need to multiply this whole bottom by negative 2. So I'm going to rewrite the top equation. We have 5a plus 2s equals 764, and then multiply every single term by negative 2. So where I'm going to see mistakes is possibly forgetting to multiply the 202 by negative 2. Make sure you got to alter every single equation. You got negative 2a minus 2s equals negative 404. Okay, then draw a line underneath it, put a plus, because we're just adding up the columns. So if you see here, the s's cancel. We get 3a equals, we get 360. And then just solve for a, divide by 3. 3 goes into 360 120 times. So our a is 120. And if you think back to the original, you know there's 202. So 202 minus 120, s has to equal 82. So just take the total, 202, minus the 120, and you'll get the 82. So once we have solved our problem, we wrote our equation, we solved it, go back and answer the question. So what does a equal 120 mean? What does s equal 82 mean? So it means we had the number of adults, number of students. So I'm going to write it right here. We have the adults. There was 120 adult tickets and 82 student tickets that were sold. Okay, so again, I want you to read question 3 and circle, go think through and circle the important information, and I'll show you this one last problem. And again, anytime you have questions, there's 5 questions that you're setting up for homework that's due this coming Monday. Email me, you can message me, you can put it in the group chat if you have a question, but feel free to come get a hold of me somehow. All right, so question 3, we have Josh is trying to buy a new smartphone for $400. So I'm going to just circle the money right now. He earns $25 per hour tutoring math, and he also earns $40 per hour being a clown for a child's birthday parties. His parents only allows him to work 13 hours each week. How many of hours does he need to spend being a clown? And again, I want to know how many hours tutoring as well. I want both variables identified. How many hours tutoring? Okay, so first thing, go back to our steps, identify your variables. So let's use C for being a clown, and T for tutoring. And again, look at, it's not the cost of something, it's how many. How many what? Think about hours. So let's put C equals the number of hours being a clown, and then we had T for the number of hours tutoring. And of course I had to say math because, you know, that's my favorite. Here we go. So let's see, let's put all the money information. So how many hours tutoring? We have $25 for each hour of tutoring. And then we have 40 hours for being a clown. $40 per hour. So remember, per always mean multiplication in math. So we have 40, what did I call for tutoring? 40, or it was for being a clown, or clowning. 40C equals to a total of $400. So you put all of the same information together. So we have all of the money information. And then we could say he can only work for 13 hours. What is he doing for 13 hours? Being a clown and tutoring. So I'm going to line up though in the order. T plus C equals to 13. So again, if you're looking at, we got your system and then we solve our system. So from here, I would look at the smaller one to try to get rid of. If this is 25, I want this to say negative 25. So multiply everything, and I'm running out of room for my video camera, so I'm just going to work down. I'm just going to rewrite it underneath it. Negative 25t minus 25c equals to, well, I think of when I do mental math, 13 quarters. Well, 12 quarters would make $3. So you got $3.25. So in this case, it'd be negative 370 or negative 325. All right, so this right here was this equation. So I'm just kind of ignoring that. Looking at the first one and the last one. The t's cancel, add up the c's. You get 15c equals to 75 because you got 400 minus 325. And then divide by 15. And c will equal to 5. So you have 5 for c. And if together they equal 13, what does t have to be? Well, 13 minus 5 gives us 8. And so we could say 5 hours for being a clown. And then we got the 8, t was 8, so 8 hours tutoring. 8 hours tutoring. So please, I would like you to kind of make it a conclusion for your answers, make it make sense. So after you solve the word problems, then answer what the question is. Again, if you have questions on any of these problems, please feel free to email me. So you have 5 questions on these to try and work through for Monday. All right, thank you. I hope you have a nice weekend.